From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
And now I'm just hanging on, looking at the wall, like flying this way. And I'm like, oh man, I got to let go of this thing at some point.
And then there's one that could literally pick you up.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah.
That's called a helicopter.
Well,
And the last lap was just chaos. I mean, like 4 wide, 5 wide.
It's like whatever. If you land it and send it into the fence, you're probably not going to get hurt. Bounce and then this insane roll. The car that Keegan was in. I mean, I don't know, it's the shape of the Beetle or what, but that thing sent it.
So I was the supercharger specialist on my old man's car with
Specialist?
Yeah, it sounds cooler than crew guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Alexander Rossi.
I'm Cruz Pedregon.
I'm David Carroll, and this is The Skinny.
This is The Skinny. We're in Speedway, Indiana. This is also the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. I'm Ken Stout. The big man, Rico Elmore, is in the house with me, and Michael Young, once again, behind the controls. David Carroll has joined us here in the studio. He is the series director for the Southern Drag Boat Association, and I believe it's the first time we've had a promoter director here in the studio. We have a ton of questions for guys like this because you never really hear about them. They're intimately involved.
Oh, you hear about them.
Yeah, but never,
You hear
never
a lot about them.
in a good light, right? They're intimately involved, and it seems like somebody is always upset with them. It's kind of like being a race director. You know, there's 4 or 5 people at the end of the weekend that are happy. They've all won, so they love you, but everybody else has something to complain about. I would not want your job, but we would not have our jobs without people like you, so thank you.
Well, half those people at the out ramp on Sunday are mad, okay? Half of them are pissed off, so just be ready.
David, it's great to have you with us. I know the SDBA has been around for 50 years. How long have you been in a controlling role for it?
You know, so actually I never really played in the management side of it. I was a drag boat racer myself, started out as a dirt track, and then just migrated into the living in Marble Falls, and that's when I got started with the first Marble Falls race and started racing then, and in a river racer and worked through the deal, and we raced with SDBA then, and we chased the IHBA, and the Division II was the what we did, and a couple years ago was just I had the opportunity, and Randy Ball was actually running the SDBA at the time. And I told Randy, I was like, man, him and Joe Mack was like, hey, won't you come on board, be a board member and help us start doing this? And I was like, and as I got older and work got to where it would allow me to do that, and I was helping several racers, you know, run their boats and stuff and playing with one myself. And so we started this deal, and I wrote a little letter to the SDBA, and they made me a board member, actually become the vice president. And that very first year, and then Randy Ball and Joe Mack both bailed on me, you know. It was like they went, so we got somebody else in there.
We got one. We got one on the hook.
No, they set the hook, and it's like, hey, pat you on the back, and took off, you know. But no, they're good. They did a lot for the sport, and so worked through that year helping run and learned a lot about what it took to do it. And really, you know, nobody really knows, and it's different. I mean, as a racer, you don't know how hard it is to set that up and all that it takes to do that. And so we did, I mean, just working with them, and I mean, from getting in the water to setting the track up to doing everything that goes into doing that, and not even playing on the promoter side, just the logistics of pulling the race off. And so we did this, and that first year, and Tommy had come in. Tommy Thompson had actually bailed the SDBA out that year and come in, and he'd purchased all the equipment, upgraded everything, and we'd went through and we was doing that, and we was in San Angelo, and Tommy said, hey, I want to talk to you here in a minute. And I said, all right. And so I was busy helping run the race and do that. And so finally he gets me, says, look, we got to talk, dude. And so we go to his toter home, and Tommy says, look, I want you to take this thing over and run it. And so that's kind of how it got started. I said, man, I got to get with my partners at work and my wife. There's some things I need to check and see if this is something I can even do. And so, you know, as we did that, I mean, we played this thing out, and partners all said, you know, we built some fences to where they can't come, you know, if you're going to be the promoter of this thing, it can't hurt us in our other business. And the wife gave me the okay. So here we are. And it was like, Tommy said, if you need some help, let me know. And so I took it that year, and it was just like in first year, and then COVID hit, and then it was like, you just throw your hands up, and it's like we did. I reached out to Chad at Bang Shift, and we started doing our first live stream with no spectators, trying to keep this sport alive. I mean, we managed through that year, and it was like, kind of got a little bit stabler, and we started doing some stuff, and we tried to get Marble Falls back, and it couldn't. We kept racing in San Angelo, Waco, and Paris. We did race in Lucas that first year, and it was like, well, the first race in Lucas, I was going to do that race, and that was the race that we had called. And then the next race there was when they had that. It was a KDBA race. I wasn't actually in the race, but it was a race that they had a boat hit their rescue. They called me. Jimmy Todd calls me, and I loaded one of my boats up on a trailer and drove it all the way out to Wheatland so they could finish that race. And it was like, man, it was just, you catch yourself doing stuff that, I mean, man, I love this sport. I mean, I grew up watching drag boats and people like Kevin running, and really never raced until Marble Falls race started. And it was just like, there's so much behind the scenes, and it was like every year we just kept getting a little bit better, and we got better people, and there's nobody like drag boat racing family as far as the way they'll come together and help you pull these things off. And I mean, I'm a drag racer, dirt car. I would have probably still kept dirt tracking if it was it was every weekend, and I couldn't really do it. And the boat racing fit my program better because it was like about 5 little mini vacations, So it's a family sport. He said the Super Bowl is 3 hours. And if you put on an 8-hour show, you're not going to get them back on Sunday.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. This is The Skinny. I'm Ken Stout, and that's Rico Elmore. We have David Carroll in the studio with us. The guys flew in here specifically for our show. Couldn't be happier to hear about that. David Carroll, instrumental with the SDBA. Kevin Kinsley, who came in with him as well. They're good buddies, and of course, a top fuel hydro racer. David Carroll getting his start there in the 90s in Marble Falls. I remember my first trip to Marble Falls, and there a number of those after that, and I never forget the fuel boats running there. That was back in the IHBA days. But the fuel boats would run down through there, kick this massive rooster tail up, and then, of course, the backdrop was that cliff of rock.
Yeah.
And you would just hear the echo, and you could hear the water fall after the boat. So you get goosebumps thinking about it, but it's a special place.
It is a special place for sure. I mean, Marble Falls is, I think this is our 25th year there as well. I mean, coming back, and this is it's a big deal. And Marble Falls has always had a good fan base there, and it's a cool place to race. And I mean, cool thing about it, it's home for me.
So the people might not realize what all's involved. Of course, you've already touched on what it takes, all the front work you have to do to get an event going, just the logistics of the event. Touch base with, of course, all of the racers, the rules that have to be in place, the insurance that has to be in place, the venues that you have to put together. How do you go? What is the process, man? I mean, the laundry list is massive when you stop and think about it.
There's only 2 man-made facilities that I know of or that I've raced at, and that's the Wild Horse, or it was Firebird, in Chandler, Arizona, and then Lucas Speedway's got the Lake Lucas there in Wheatland, Missouri. And they're awesome tracks. And, and it's to be able to pull one off in the city, okay? I mean, in Marble Falls, I started out working on Lake Fest committee there, and you're dealing not only with the city, the insurance, but all these homeowners that live there. So you've got to make deals with those guys and get them guys to check off on your list that you've taken care of them and made this. There's so much more to it. Now, it has its advantages over all these other places too, okay? Because I race in 5 or 6 different cities, okay? So I travel around. The problem with a lot of the man-made stuff, okay, is when you race multiple times there, people pick and choose when they go, okay? So when we go to an event and it's at Marble Falls, or it's at Waco, or it's at San Angelo, and you're going there once, it's like, well, I can't go back in 3 weeks and go, or I can't go back and do that. And the boat racer fans are not really, they'll chase the boats around, but they're not like, and I'll go back to the dirt track days to where they're not weekend fans. And a good friend of mine, Freddie Bray, told me, he said, David, he said, a good show is he said, the Super Bowl is 3 hours. And if you put on an 8-hour show, you're not going to get them back on Sunday. And so that was something that I think about. And so I try to get my show in at a reasonable time, because if you wear them out on Saturday, you ain't going to sell them on a ticket on Sunday.
I got somebody else you could tell about that too, but we'll leave that out right now.
You know, and it's
Somebody else that goes straight in a line.
It's, you know, it's something that it's something that I've learned, and we do. And if you wear them out on Saturday and you keep them there we start racing at 8:00 on Saturday, and it's a pretty, you know, we keep our show going, and it's like, people don't realize you go back to the Augusta days and the way you got races that are fan races and you got races that are racer races, okay? The deal is with Augusta, it wasn't the coolest place for a racer to race, but we went there because it was a damn cool place for a fan to go. We drug those boats right in front of you, or they drove to the track. I mean, these guys used to drive the fuel boats to the rope, okay? They drove them down there on gas, and they would idle them down there on gas, and then they would crank them on gas, and then crank them over to nitro and run them when we first started racing there, okay? But, I mean, and it was cool for the fans, but it wasn't cool for us, okay? And I tell my racers that Marble Falls is a fan race, okay? It's not near as cool for the racer in Marble Falls as it is for the fan, but it's a damn cool place for a fan, okay?
And there's been some big moments at Marble Falls.
You know, we go to a race like in San Angelo, we got a ramp on both ends. It's a lake, but that city put those ramps there for that boat race, okay? They went in there and built that park. Basically, we race in the middle of an RV park, and it's a cool-ass place. We got an in ramp, and we got a emergency ramp, and we got an out ramp. All that shit is built just like it's a drag strip, where it's done, but it's built on a lake, on Lake Nasworthy. And it's a racer's lake, and we love it. Although we get lots of fans there, Waco, man, what a historic place that is. Beautiful place. And it's, you know, it's getting harder to race in these as the city starts moving into those places, man. You got to make more deals, and it gets tougher and tougher every year. So Paris, Texas is a place that, man, when nobody would let me race, Paris shut that park. We brought all the racers in. We locked the gate, and we did our race there, and it was a non-spectator race. And, you know, and we pulled it off, and we did it. And, you know, and Chad helped us get that deal going. Chad had his pro mod stuff going on. We've reached out. We got Racer H2O that does our stuff now, and it's cool. And this will be the first year we're going to be on the big four. We're going to be on Hulu, Rico, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. So this is a big deal for SDBA. We're reaching out and got our first real corporate sponsors coming in, you know, and we're making some moves.
A look at what it takes to run a series. It is anything but easy. Stay with us. We're going to continue to pick this guy's brain. Pretty interesting stuff.
There's a rope that goes across that the boats are on, and one of their customers falls off in the water.
We have David Carroll on the set with us here, very instrumental in everything that happens with the Southern Drag Boat Racing Association. And it's great to hear this perspective. You know, as fans, we come in and we take a look at what's going on. We want to learn about the drag boat racers, but we don't really necessarily think about the person that put all of this in place for us to go out there. As racers, you come in here and you think, man, we want to put on a show for the fans. We want to race our friends. And you kind of expect the promoter to do what they've done. You think, we're the show. We're coming in here. We're the racers. But it's a wheel that has a lot of spokes in it. And you've got to work together, and the promoter has to put all those spokes in that wheel and make sure that wheel's balanced for it to work.
It's a huge deal. And, as a racer, I took so much of that for granted, dude. I took so much for granted. Coming in and doing a race in Marble Falls and working with a chamber, which is what's awesome about that, is these guys have a Lake Fest committee that work on this race the whole year. Okay,
wow.
So this race they work on it from the time when we get done there in June, 2 weeks after the race, we'll have a meeting, and it's just kind of, everybody's got their notes and what went wrong and what did you see. Because if you don't do that, then you forget about it. You'd make the same mistakes again next year. So we'll do that, our little meeting after the race. And then next year, we've corrected that, and how do we make that better? But I mean, this Marble Falls is incredible. There's a lot of cool things about San Angelo, working with the RV park and the Spring Creek, because they pretty much work on it year round there. Waco's man, it's just a historical place. It's a cool place, but it's hard and it's a moving target. There's lots of new stuff. I mean, you're dealing with a riverboat that goes through there, and you got to pay those guys not to rain the riverboat and their dinner cruises while you're doing it. You got the rowing team there. You got Baylor ski team. There's so much stuff that you're out there doing. And the best thing I got there is I got Gary Payne that lives there, and him and his dad started that thing at the hot boat deal 50 plus years ago, because the SDBA stemmed off of the hot boat is when it started, and the hot boat was prior to that, and it was Austin Boat Club, I think, but even before that. But I mean, all of those guys, I mean, those names that chase back through there, where I mentioned Freddie Bray, well, that was the Spirit of Texas back then, and it was, I mean, Kyle Walker drove for him then, and Kirkland got it, and I mean, it's crazy how those people are still involved,
They should just park that dinner cruise boat on the side.
Hey, I'll tell you that. So the dinner
line
cruise,
it up, get another one.
the dinner cruise,
Yeah, man, I'd be in the dinner cruise boat hanging out. AC.
the dinner cruise
Ribbon.
comes through there, and the guy, they're holding it up they're holding the holding rope up, where there's a rope that goes across that the boats are on, and one of their customers falls off in the water. So it become a big deal for us to make a deal with the dinner boat cruise to just chill out.
I mean, that's what I think of. I think like you have to get in touch with the town officials.
No,
you have to come up with an insurance company that's going to insure it. You must have to sell to the township how you're going to increase their business and their dollars that are coming in, right?
There's a really cool app out there today that we have that we can monitor. If you have a cell phone and you go through there, okay, we know where you're from. Now, we don't know your name, but we know where you're from. We know where you're staying, where you're spending, or if you're spending a credit card or you're in that town. I mean, and we take those numbers back. I mean,
Yeah, geofencing, right?
It's geofencing, but it's placers, and
awesome.
it's like where they're tracking how many people we get there, and we have to sell that to the chamber. And we're out there chasing that hotel tax money too, I mean, that's where we try to get it, and that's what I pretty much lived on. Before this stuff come back. I mean, when they pulled drag boat racing, when Lucas went away, dude, that's a tough act to follow, dude. It really is. I mean, and try to keep that sport alive and to keep this away. I honestly thought that I could do this without fuel boats. Okay, when I first started this thing, I was going to do it with alcohol boats, and I was in the mentality as if you don't show it to them, you don't have to. The problem is. They showed it to the world. Okay, you guys have been.
They've already seen it.
They've already seen it.
Yeah.
And Todd Haas kept coming to me. It's like, dude, we need to buy this boat from Tommy. Nitro Nuts. I started paying them to make some exhibition passes, and I was talking to Tyler and those guys and Tim and trying to get their stuff together. But it was like there wasn't no money out there, and you can't run these things without no money. And so Todd kept coming to me, and I was like, my deal was I was trying to find somebody to help Todd buy it. I was looking for somebody to do it. And Todd just kept on me, and it was like, man, and so I was like, man, I watched what Nitro Nuts did to the crowd. It was like, if I made 2 passes on Sunday, when he made his second pass, my crowd got up and left, okay? And so I knew that there again, that's where I go back to my partners and my wife and say, hey, look, I want to buy a fuel boat. So went and made a deal with Tommy, and we put those 2 fuel boats out there. And the first time this last year, we put 3 fuel boats in the same water for a race. And we had Tyler, Mike Robbins, and then our boat in there at the same race. And it was crazy, dude. It was like, and then Todd was like, look, if we're not going to get no fuel boats, let's work on doing this grudge race with Marty, which Marty's a fan favorite too, man, and people love him. And so we put Marty in his lane. He runs against his record. We put us in our lane. We stagger the start, to where theoretically they're going to get to the end at the same time.
Bracket racing.
That's what it was. We're bracket racing, but 11,000 horsepower against
Right.
4, you know, and it's crazy. And so, and Marty loves it. Keb loves it. I mean, the crowd loves it. And so until I get this thing back on, we're going to keep doing these, you know, and I'm going to make it a bigger deal. That one view video that we did of Kevin and Marty running has over 12 million views. I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
Pretty cool stuff for sure. Not just anybody can fall inside of this seat and be successful about it. This guy's a talented businessman. We're going to touch on that when we come back.
You know, when he said that to me earlier, I was like,
Pretty good gig, right?
then he went on to say what it was. I was like, oh, okay.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. This is The Skinny. I'm Ken Stout, and that's Rico Elmore. We have David Carroll in the studio with us, and I find it intriguing what his day job is because he's a roofer. Don't think about the guy that's putting tiles on your roof. It's a little different type of thing. You only do about 4 jobs a year. I mean, I guess you're just playing golf a lot, I guess, in the meantime. But
no.
You know when he said that to me earlier, I was like,
pretty good gig, right?
Then he went on to say what it was. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a little bit of a different.
Picture Dallas Cowboys Stadium retractable roof.
You know,
that's the stuff that you do.
No, we do. We did the Rockets, where the Houston Rockets play, the Toyotas. I mean, we do big roofs, okay? And these roofs are, a bunch of them, we got logos on them, and this is what we do. And like I said, our goal is we want to chase 4 checks a year, not 4,000. So that's our deal. But no, we do big jobs, and it's something that I've been in the construction industry for a long time, and we started this deal several years ago and had been very successful. And most of the guys that work for us have been with us for 15 to 20 years. And so very, very
Have
good.
those roles paid dividends here running the SDBA with these meetings and townships? You kind of know how that stuff goes?
You know, it does, but it's a different level. You're dealing with a different part of the city. And whether we're on the permitting side of that, but it's on the, irregardless, it's the professional side and knowing where you stand and be prepared and doing that stuff. I mean,
a lot of bureaucratic stuff.
It's a lot.
Right.
It's tough, man. I mean, it's and from state to state, and just knowing things are different when we run in Oklahoma or we run or go out there and run on the reservations. It's different. I mean, we have to do different. We play different on the reservation than we do other places.
I was just kind of taking in everything that you were talking about. The great part of it is what you've explained, what you've talked about, and I'm always, and Michael could attest to this. Of course, Ken being out there with us as well. The Speedway, Indianapolis Motor Speedway has turned into an event. It's not a race.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to go to a race. They want to go to an event.
Yep.
So whether that's, Sammy playing music, Sammy Eubanks playing music afterwards, for a little show for everybody or whatever, I mean, it has to be a destination place, right? Because there's only going to be a percentage of the family unit that wants to go and say, hey, man, this is awesome. We all just love this. 1 or 2 of the family is going to be idiots and not love racing, which is weird. But anyhow, it's... But, that's the bottom line. It's an event. And I love that idea and the way you're working that and putting 3, fuel boats in at the same time. Hell, get them 4 wide. What are you doing? Doing it in drag racing.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're going to have to widen that track. But, the deal with Sammy, too, that's huge to us. People that have gone to NHR events, and then when I put on my poster that Sammy's coming to mine, it's like, hey, Sammy's coming. That's cool stuff.
yeah.
And the whole
He's
deal,
underutilized at the NHRA.
He is definitely underutilized.
And listen,
he's
we're
awesome
the ones
performer.
we're the ones that are helping him get up and down the road amongst others now as well. But he's underutilized, and all he wants to do is play music. He's amazingly great, and
I send him the sport. He truly loves the sport.
Totally knows
very
the
knowledgeable
sport.
about it.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and he's a good promoter for me. I give him stuff to pass out at the drag races when he's there, and he's got my schedules, and he's on my team. I tell you that.
It's funny to hear, though. People like you that have to deal with with the logistics, those insurance companies and those permits and the township, and then get excited about somebody like Sammy, who's really not, he's not going to bring a race car to the or a race boat to your facility, but it's such a family atmosphere, and as he just alluded to, an event, it's more than just racing, and that's where Sammy brings another element, something that the kids might enjoy, or the wife might enjoy, or maybe the wife is racing and the husband wants to go listen.
You throw a bounce house in there and it's on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the last thing you
With
need.
Sammy?
Yeah, well, yeah, with Sammy too, I guess.
I knew where that was going.
But it's super cool stuff, and that's what you have to do. You have to find those elements that will attract more than just the race fan.
It does, and it's like, we've tried, and for selling the ultimate fan deal, we've started selling these deals, and actually, I haven't really sold one, but what I do is I donate them to different auctions and stuff for fundraisers in these cities prior to me getting there. And so, where it's an ultimate fan deal to where they get to come and get their picture took with the fuel boats, and then I put them on the barge when the fuel boats go out there. And so, you're just hoping those 4 people that you did that with bring 4 with them. That's all we can do. Okay,
Go out
and
and
it's
tell
like
10 more people
whatever
about
it is. So it's like I don't know, man. I'm out of the box on trying to do whatever it takes to save
Keep
my
doing
sport,
it.
and
Keep
you
doing
know,
it.
and I've started this deal to where. It's easy. It's easier for my daughter to get a sponsor than it is for me and Kevin a fuel boat. Okay, she can go out there and ask for something. It's easy, and it's easier for me to get her. Of course, it doesn't cost as much for her to run her stuff, but and so I push women and girls in our motorsports and where they're at, and I think it's easier to promote them. For one, there's less of them. And it's easy to do, and it's just in NHRA the same thing. Those girls get a lot more attention, and there's less of them, and so Speedboat Magazine did orchestrated a deal with them to put on an article in Speedboat here a couple of years ago of the women of drag boat racing. There's 3 pro drivers in there that are knocking on 180, 90 miles an hour, and so that's cool stuff, man. Whatever it takes to put them out there.
They're a lot cooler than me.
Yeah.
Going that fast.
He just touched on it. We'll touch on it a little bit more when we come back. His daughter, Mallory, very talented driver.
And I had to stay home and play softball, And so Fagan said, hey, we got to fix this. And so we started the jet ski races.
The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. This is The Skinny. We have David Carroll in the studio with us here, and very instrumental with the SDBA, and his daughter, also a racer inside of that series. Of course, David, you grew up racing. You've already mentioned it a couple times, from motorcycles to dirt cars, and then obviously into drag boats. And through the 90s and 2000, I think 2001, you won a championship in drag boats. And then at some point in time, obviously became where you are now, more on the business side of it. But when was it that it seemed to make sense that your daughter said, "Hey, Dad, I'd like to go racing"? What was that conversation? When did that happen?
That whole thing, and I'm going to throw this back to an old name. So I show up in Shodo, and Fagan was like, "Hey, where was you at last week, dude? You're winning the points." And I was like, and I had to stay home and play softball, And so Fagan said, "Hey, we got to fix this." And so we started the jet ski races, okay? We started personal watercraft for kids, okay?
So when you say Fagan, just for the fans, I want to tell them that's Charlie Fagan, who ran the International Hot Boat
That's
Association.
correct. And so Tiffany, his daughter, and my daughter Mallory, same age, and so we started this. So if we took the kids, it made it easier for Mom to go and all that stuff, and us to play as well. So that's how.
So you got them out of softball.
Yeah.
You just throw a jet ski in the trailer.
I did.
I'll fix this problem right now. No more softball.
We welded a hitch on the back of the trailer and pulled a jet ski to the races. Okay. Now Mallory's in a pro mod, so that's kind of full circled and bit me in the ass. But I've made Mallory win a championship in every class to get to where she's at.
A championship, not just
no,
win.
not just a win. She had to have a championship. The only class that she skipped was the only class that she skipped was QE class, and because I had Tommy Rice driving a boat for me, I didn't want 2 boats in the same class, and so she went from PE to the pro mod, and she's in there now. And so
that's a massive step, because that's an open boat to a capsule boat.
Absolutely. And she was in. It was a so that was a 650 in the 1,000 foot. That was a 650 boat. Her PE boat was, and then now she runs 560s or 560s in the capsule boat. But there's a lot of difference in the motors. I mean, from doing that, just a capsule boat to run. You can't take this motor out and put it in that and make it run the same. And there's a lot of difference. Have you been
in a capsule boat yourself?
I haven't. I've just.
I was just curious. I'd love to ask her the question: what the sensation is like to go from a PE boat that is open into the capsule boat, which is significantly faster, of course. I'd be really curious what the sensation is for the driver.
I with her, I mean, she's ready to go. She wants to go faster now, so it's one of those deals you talk about.
Don't you have a faster boat sitting in the shop?
I got a couple of them.
Might as well twist the screw a little bit, right?
Yeah, hopefully she watches.
Kevin's
this.
sitting over there, shut up, dude, shut up. I've got that right.
Yeah.
Mallory's very involved with the SDBA as well. Okay, and I'll tell you a cool story about Mallory. We're in Phoenix and we're walking by and we walk where Armshire always parked over there on the end, and we walked by, and Don's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" Talking to him, and Phyllis is like, "Hey, come in, check our new toter out." So we go in, we're checking this new toter out. They just got this new truck, and Phyllis and Don, and so Mallory's just oohing and ahhing this deal, and she's like, looks up at me, and she says, "What does he do for a living, Dad?" I said, "Well, he's a lawyer." And she said, "That's what I want to be when I grow up." I was like, and he said, "Well, I was going to be a dentist, but I couldn't get into med school." So Mallory's a doctor, okay? So you don't need me. I mean, she's an OTPT. She's a director of rehab in Austin. So she's got it going on. But
I remember you telling me that. That is so awesome.
She's got it going on. She's director of rehab there, and she works her ass off to get to where she's at, but she don't need me to do this. I got to control it if I'm going to be there,
That's great stuff. And, of course, you're bringing up Don Ermshire. We lost him too soon. Him and his brother, Jim, just wonderful,
awesome
wonderful
people. Man. Flat bottom people, too, She told me, she said, "Well, I want to drive a flat bottom." My oldest daughter drove a flat bottom. She drove mine. And Mallory wanted to get in it, but my oldest daughter listened to me better than Mallory did, so I couldn't let Mallory in it, And then the cool story about the flat bottom hydro deals. So the flat bottom is a boy's bike, and the hydro is a girl's bike. Okay, so that's really that's. How
oh boy, letters are coming now. The letters are coming now. And I wasn't about to bring up that rivalry, but it is still alive and well between the hydros and the flat bottoms.
Want to get the skinny on other guests in different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We're in Speedway, Indiana, here at the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. I'm Ken Stout, Rico Elmore here in the house. Mr. Michael Young back there running the controls. And Michael, you said you had a question here for our guest.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to ask this, David. I always, in IndyCar racing, I'm involved with IndyCar racing, and I think it's so difficult for a promoter is how do you sell a sport to a generation of kids coming up that could care less about cars, that it seems that they've gone away from that, and you're trying to sell a sport to a new generation of people that may have never even seen a boat or even know what it's like to be around a boat. How does that affect your decision making and how you approach each event?
Well, I think if you're selling to the kids today, I mean, you've got to be on social media because, I mean, if you're going to attract a kid or somebody new into it, you're going to have to get it on social media and get it into there somehow. And, I mean, you just got to target the group you're after. I don't know. I mean, going back to Mallory, I mean, and Kevin, and these guys are wonderful with kids and putting those kids in the boats and taking their. I mean, we do these show and shines where we put our boats out there, and these kids come over. We put them in there, and I mean, those kids that were put in those boats and the jet ski class that we started. I mean, every one of those, not every one of them, but damn near every one of those kids are driving boats today or did at one point. So, I mean, they start.
Do you still have that the jet ski thing?
Well, we still have it, and then and there's a lot of adults that actually race too, but it's a dial-in class, and we get them out there. I used to put on a jet ski class in Marble Falls, Charlie. When he got done on Friday on a test and tune, I would get out there and get on the barge, and the Kyle Hahn and a bunch of those guys that were local right there. And we'd get out there and we would teach those kids. I'd borrow jet skis, whatever I could from all the marinas and my buddies that we all lived on the lake. And so we'd bring our jet skis and we'd get all the racers' kids out there, because at some point we ended up getting those kids in boats. I mean, there's a lot of kids that come out of those jet skis. I mean, Shelby Ebert, Tuttle's son, he run jet skis. There's lots of kids that migrate through those skis that are boat racers today, and so that's where you go, and you get those in there, and it's
worth mentioning too. On jet skis, I think they call it personal watercraft class,
correct,
if
yes.
I'm not mistaken, PWC. But worth mentioning that they're not as they were when we were kids. I mean, some of these things are rocket ships.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we limit them to 9 seconds. Okay, we won't actually. Yeah, we can't. We
Quarter
won't
mile?
allow them, huh?
9 second quarter mile.
No, in 1,000 foot.
I mean, that's
we
getting
run
it done.
1,000 foot, and it's
What are they running at 1,000 feet in 9 seconds?
Some of them 65, 70 miles an hour.
Let's get.
Yeah,
And these are stock skis.
on an open ski.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's been some skis out there that would run in the 10s in the quarter.
Wow.
I mean, Gorilla Dave, man. I mean, they spent like $40,000 on the motor building that thing. It's crazy, but it's
It's racing. I mean, everybody chases it. I mean, that's what it does to any
Right.
class,
Absolutely.
Junior dragsters started off with little 5 horsepower Briggs, and look at them now.
There's about 4 different series of that. Or
the carts, man. I mean, these kids start out in these carts and they're driving sprint cars and stuff like that. I mean, I watched Christopher Bell grow up, man. I mean, it's like, and Larson and those guys, and Larson's going to have one right there too one day, man.
Yeah, well, I think all those guys are. You've got Kyle Busch with his son.
Absolutely.
You've got Harvick's son. I mean, all of those guys
all
are
coming.
like all coming. And it's interesting to watch because, as good as, Nemechek was in his moments, now you've got his son, John Hunter. Now he's doing it. The junior dragster stuff.
Antron's kids.
Erica, JR,
Yeah.
both world champions came through that.
Yep.
Antron's kids. Dude, I like getting Antron going about junior dragsters. I think if in another life he would be like a junior dragster driver, period.
Oh,
He is
we was
so
at an event this last year. I mean, he still gets into pro mods. He gets out there and plays in Fuel Tech guys a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. And for the fans that maybe are joining in and watching us here, I can't stress enough what a family atmosphere drag boat racing has.
Yeah.
It's one of the strongest. I mean, I go to a lot, and I think racing in general is a good family atmosphere industry. And I've always maintained a big reason that I loved it is raising my son in it, who fortunately for me has talent, so we have a passion for the same thing. That was just icing on the cake. But for him to be around it and watching how hard you have to work to be successful at it, and then to see the successful people that are inside of it, business people that are in it. So you're surrounding them, as you guys have said, with really good people that they're blue-collar, hard-working people that are white-collar successul. And it could not be a better atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, the whole deal, Ken, I mean, I remember when you would just, we'd only, after you moved on and you'd just come to our banquets and stuff like that. I mean, and just the passion you had and coming back and talking about doing that stuff, man. I mean, that cool seeing you get excited about my sport and our sport, But I mean, and I know you've kept
You guys
announcing
didn't have
it.
any drinks or anything at that banquet.
No, man, but I mean, it's
Okay, just
we
checking.
go
I was
back-
working.
No.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I appreciate the kind words. Hey, we've got one more segment here with David Carroll. Stick with us. We'll be right back. And watch both.
Yeah, that's why
Those people are calling me every day right
Oh,
now.
my
I
goodness.
mean, they want to send me a deposit today for their spot.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force.
We have David Carroll on the set with us here. Talk to us about the future of SDBA. Where's this going? What's going to happen for 2023 and beyond?
I think that we're probably as good a shape as I've been in since I've had it going into a season this year, okay? For the simple fact that for one, I think I've learned a lot, okay, in what worked and what didn't, but just building the relationship at all these places that we've went, and not just, I mean, I know that we'd been there before, but just going and there are different times, and the live streaming and stuff helps a lot, but there again, just learning that what it takes and trying to keep the show going, and like I said, and keeping it going. The fuel boats is huge, man. I mean, we got some cool stuff coming out this year with the fuel boats too, and we're gonna up our game with it. And I really do think by the end of this year we could have four boats back in the water, and that's a huge deal. And we've been in contact with there's 4 out there that could really make it, 5, if really we got after it pretty quick. But I mean, getting 4 fuel boats at one race again, that's a big deal, man.
How many races on the schedule?
We got 5. We have 5 races on the schedule this year. We have some deals negotiating that I can't release, and it doesn't do me no good to release them if I don't have a contract.
We won't tell anybody.
There's nobody listening. Go ahead. It's all right.
But it's just that's the stuff that we got some cool stuff working. I mean, we're going to start out in Marble Falls. We go to San Angelo. And then we go to Waco, Texas. We go to Paris, Texas. And then when our finals is back in San Angelo this year.
So I know you guys, we talked about Kevin running that 272 against Marty Logan and that happening out there at Chandler. We heard Chandler's going away. You always hear rumors. I always liken it to Irwindale that was going to close for, it seems like 10, 15 years. Right. But is there a chance that Chandler stays alive?
I think absolutely. I think that we'll have 10 more last races there.
I think it's like the Kiss farewell tour. They're on about their 10th year of it.
That's exactly right.
You never know when it's going to end, so you just keep throwing another one, right?
Throw it out there, and you're like, all right, we really got to do it this time. This is it.
No, I do. I think that's the deal is so when COVID hit and nobody used it, I think it really would have went away, okay? But we've started using it, and it's big. And, I mean, nobody wants it to go away. I mean, and I'll play that last race every time they do because it sells me tickets. But, I mean, I honestly believe it'll come back.
I mean, you back the motorhome. Yeah, you back the motorhome up to the fence and watch boats.
Yeah, that's why
those people are calling me every day now.
My goodness.
I mean, they want to send me a deposit today for their spot.
Yeah.
A bunch of those people have been there for 25 or 30 years in the same spot. I mean, what's cool about that event is it's Vegas, Phoenix, Pomona. And so all of those people that do that, all of those motorhomes, I mean, that's how we intercepted Sammy out there. Sammy came and played for me out there.
Yep.
I mean, the stuff that Evan had got me on the NHRA tote board in Vegas this last year. And so playing our video on that, man, I mean, I was sitting in the stands right there at the starting line and to watch our video play on the tote board at NHRA.
Well, that's huge.
That's huge, man. I mean, Alan's been a huge deal for me when I go to their events. I mean, he's always wanting to help me out with that stuff. And, I mean, there's a lot of the crossovers in that out there in that area.
Is that what you're talking about?
Who's that?
Evan Jonat?
Yes.
NHRA?
Yes.
He's a good dude.
He is a good dude. He's the one that put that on there for me.
It's great stuff, man. We really appreciate you coming in here. More importantly, we appreciate what you're doing. Dedicated a massive chunk of your life to this sport that we love, a segment of this sport that we love. And the drag boat racing has such a massive line of history behind it. It needs people like you to keep pushing this thing forward. The boat racers are going to be there, no matter what. They're going to go racing somewhere, somehow. But we need people like you to organize it. And, man, without you guys, we wouldn't have a place to go, and we wouldn't have a job to cover, the racing that we love. So
and thank your family and your business partners too for
for sure
for letting you be gone for a bit. So
and allowing you to become part of this and bring them with it. I mean, it's a big deal. We appreciate what you do.
It's definitely a passion of mine, and like I said, it's just something that it's been a family sport for us, and it's something that I got involved with and dearly love, and man, it's easy to do when you like it.
For the fans at home, we know he's not a big-name racer, but what we want you to take out of the show is next time you walk into any sort of event, it doesn't necessarily have to be racing, know that people like this have already been working in excess of a year in many, many cases to make sure that that event is there, successful, so that you can have a good time. Keep in mind, people like that man right there. David Carroll on the show, and now you know a little bit of the skinny about what it takes to put on an event.